If you follow the country music conversation at all, you know that there are tons of artists that the powers that be in Nashville really want you to care about. And they'll spend millions of dollars trying to get them good placement on playlists, trying to get puff pieces written about them in the media, sending them on very expensive radio tours, or trying to get them lucrative TV gigs. And yet, at the end of the day, they're just kind of radio artists that no one really cares that much about. And if you follow the independent country scene at all, you know that there are tons of artists that music nerds like me really want you to listen to. And while we don't have millions of dollars to promote them, we have a lot of passion. But in this video, I want to look at the emerging artists who, regardless of the hype from the industry or from the critics, are happening, are buzzworthy, are emerging as the artists with the most passionate, crazy fan bases that get people talking. But first, I want to say a shout out to today's sponsor, which is Keeps. And Keeps is a hair loss prevention solution. And that's awesome because 2 out of 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness before the age of 35. And Keeps helps prevent that. And you can go to their website, you can read thousands of customer reviews. You can look at before and after photos there and see that some guys have actually experienced hair regrowth, and then you can do a consultation and have Keeps sent discreetly to your door. No doctor lines. It's super, super, super easy. Now, they've given me a link to share it with you, and if you use my link, which is in the description down below, you can get 50% off your first order of Keeps. It's just keeps.com/Smith, and that'll take you there, and you can, save a bunch of money and save a bunch of hair. So thanks to Keeps for sponsoring the channel, and now let's get into the video. Every day I get tons of comments, DMs, emails from people that really want me to know about certain country artists that they love. And so in some ways I feel like I have an awesome handle on which artists are really connecting with people, which ones really have passion behind them. And in this video, I want to cover some of those emerging country stars, and I'm talking about newer acts that are really on the rise or are suddenly finding a mainstream audience, because we all know there are established country stars like Eric Church or Carrie Underwood that have incredibly passionate fan bases, but they're going to have to sit out for this video. This is about the ones that are getting people talking right now that are on the newer side. And the first artist I want to talk about is the masked cowboy, Orville Peck.
The sun goes down another dreamless night.
Orville Peck has had a very quick rise over the last year, and that is because he's this mysterious figure that wears this fringed mask over his face. And much like Sia used a giant wig to cover her face and created all of this intrigue and suddenly went from just being a person who sang hooks on Flo Rida songs to being a legitimate pop star in her own right, Orville Peck has taken the mystery of who is Orville Peck and turned it into a very effective gimmick that has made him one of the it country stars of this time period. Orville Peck has a real crooner's voice. It sounds a little bit like Elvis, and then also a little bit like Roy Orbison to my ear.
Blackened houses, morning skies on my mind.
But it's like it was fused with the kind of downer, vibey, melancholy, new wave feels of Lana Del Rey. There's something really dreamy and hazy about his music, but that croon, I think, really cuts through the music and creates something that sounds sort of like the Smiths. The main reason I think Orville is clicking is because I think he's created an incredibly compelling and mysterious vibe with his aesthetics. Not only is the sound of his music very much that kind of new wave vibe, but you've got these gorgeous photo shoots that are somewhere between glamorous and grimy, and then you've got these videos that just look like a cross between like a smoky Brooklyn bar and a Visco page and Brokeback Mountain. And I should mention that Orville is out and gay, and he sings about that on his songs, and that's definitely gotten him a lot of press, and it's definitely made him a figure that people that might feel outside of the country genre are more willing to kind of lean into. Someone that doesn't fit the mold of a dude in a pickup truck with a pack of Skull in his back pocket, holding a dead deer in his Instagram photos, and say, wow, maybe I'm more willing to listen to this. And then the fact that he definitely has a poppier sound helps that as well. So we'll see if the gimmick works for a long time. We'll see if he ever takes off the mask. For now, it's certainly working. He is getting so much press. And if the music sucked, that would be annoying, but the music doesn't suck at all. Then let's talk about Riley Greene.
Wish Monday mornings felt just like Friday night.
Now, Riley is totally one of those guys that I was just talking about that's always holding a big buck in his Instagram photos, because The dude loves his hunting. But I think it would be unfair to say that Riley Greene is some assembly line Nashville bro, because I think his music is actually really organic and rich sounding in its instrumentation. It harkens way more back to a 90s country sound where you can actually get real, like, pleasant guitar tones and real drums and not just oppressive snap tracks.
She's probably in love by now. A girl like that don't.
I do think he has a tendency toward checklisty lyrics and songs that are overstuffed with southern cliches, but his music connects because it is broadly appealing, covering simple subject matter in a musically pleasant package. And then you add in the fact that he's this like giant badass looking dude that guys want to emulate, that girls want to be with, and you have a recipe for a pretty effective country star. Riley's also kind of developing an identity as sort of an outlaw within the mainstream, just with a few decisions that he's made, one of which is to keep the song Bury Me in Dixie on streaming services, despite the fact that it mentions taking a bow for Robert E. Lee and saying, you know, he's proud of that song and keeping it up there. And then he also has a lyric in his song I Wish Grandpa's Never Died that says, I wish country music still got played on country radio, despite the fact that that line was changed for the radio edit of that song, which is kind of ironic. It doesn't matter, these types of decisions are making a lot of people view him as an outspoken, brash, interesting performer. Next up, I want to mention Gabby Barrett. Now, Gabby Barrett originally came in 3rd place on American Idol after Maddie Poppy, who won, and Gabby seemed to be the producer's favorite during her entire run on American Idol, and yet she didn't win, and yet I think the world is starting to see maybe what the producers saw, which is that this girl has drive. You might know Gabby from her song I Hope, which is kind of becoming the Before He Cheats of a new generation, and has been organically swelling into a massive hit for the better part of a year now. And while I find the vocal on this song overprocessed and shouty, it's clear that the sort of sultry, naughty, R&B influenced vibe that she is going for is really connecting with audiences. After I Hope started taking off, Gabby scored a major label record deal and is now prepping for an album to come out this year, and she could be kind of the heir apparent to Carrie Underwood, who she has very obviously looked up to and been influenced by as an artist. Then let's talk about Wetzel. Wetzel is a larger-than-life, rowdy personality that has come out of the Texas scene and lies somewhere in the middle of country and rock. With a giant physique and long hair and rockin' anthems like Austin and Ragweed and February 28th, 2016, has built a fan base of people that just get a rush out of his music. I get the sense that there is a real feeling of catharsis within his fan base because he sings about going crazy and doing drugs and partying too hard and just lamenting broken relationships. And so there is something really visceral about his live show. I've never gotten to see him live, but I hear that from everyone, that Wetzel live is an experience and a half. And there's just something rocking and exciting and DGAF about his style. Then let's talk about another guy from the Texas scene, Parker McCollum.
What does that say about me?
Parker McCollum probably plays to a lot of the same rowdy, college-aged fans that Wetzel does, but I think his appeal is a little bit different. Parker's music is definitely more solidly just in the country lane. It borrows a little more from pop, but it's still filled with piano and pedal steel, and it's actually kind of like sensitive and sometimes a little bit lovey-dovey, like on his biggest hit, which is called Hell of a Year, about a relationship that didn't go well.
It's been a hell of a year.
I would say the fan base for Parker McCollum really defines the type of passion I'm trying to capture in this video about Buzziest, because they love him. They adore him. And I think part of it is that he is this like perfect representation of the potential of the Texas country scene that often gets ignored by Nashville. And now Parker has come into Nashville and he's starting to work with them. He's got a big record deal and he's put out his first single, which Pretty Heart I wasn't crazy about, but I think people all recognize, all right, you got this good-looking guy that can sing really well. He represents the Texas scene, and I think that excites people that it could be kind of a gateway into this rich world of Texas and red dirt country. And as he navigates Nashville, I certainly hope he can preserve his kind of piano-y, steel-y sound that really made people fall in love with him in the first place. Up next, we got Ashley McBryde.
Let's just stick to the one-night standards.
Ashley McBryde has been making music for years, but it wasn't until about 2 years ago that she showed up in the mainstream, all covered in tats, big gray streak in her hair, performing Girl Going Nowhere on the Opry stage, and that's where a lot of people met this artist that has grit and grace and a voice that is both really powerful, but is incredible at enunciation. I feel like she really acts and performs in her songs. Ashley works with Jay Joyce, who is the longtime producer of Eric Church, and I feel like he's actually a really good example of the type of sound that she goes for, where it's certainly country and definitely countryer than Eric Church, but with this rock influence to it. But it's when you take Ashley McBryde's natural swagger and mix it with her great lyrics, her fun storytelling, and her tendency to just be very plain spoken and straightforward about real life and about the real dirty side of people's souls that she shines. Whether she's talking about her neighbor who's a drug addict on Living Next to Leroy, or she's talking about one-night standards and sleeping with someone at a motel, or she's talking about murdering her dad's lover on a song like Martha Divine, which is badass and just came out, by the way.
Mama's an angel. My daddy.
Ashley McBryde just exudes cool. And thus far, radio hasn't really taken a chance on her, and the mainstream still hasn't really found out about how awesome she is. But she has such industry respect. She just won Best New Artist at the CMAs, and there is so much passion around the intense country fans, the people like you and me. We know, and we're sharing how amazing Ashley McBryde is, and the hope is just that the public finds out too. This is not an Ashley video, but it's making me realize I need to make an Ashley video. And speaking of videos I've made, let's talk about a couple guys that I have made videos about. The first one is Hardy.
Got a little more kick in my draw, y'all. I got a little more spit in my
Hardy's
jaw.
had one big hit, his song Rednecker, but mostly he's just become super known in the last few years as a songwriter for some of the biggest acts in country music. I mean, he had cuts all over Florida Georgia Line's last record, Can't Say I Ain't Country, and then he's got cuts with Morgan Wallen and Blake Shelton and a bunch of other people. And he's just established himself as this affable, very funny, very memeable guy that has his tongue out as much as Miley Cyrus, and just feels kind of in on the joke, doesn't take himself too seriously, and is clearly a clever lyricist. But like I said, I have an entire video dedicated to him, so I won't talk about him more here. I also want to mention Hardy's BFF, Morgan Wallen.
But it's happy hour drinking double shooters.
Now, if you watched the last video where I reviewed Morgan's last single, This Bar, you know I have trouble describing his sound, but what I think really stands out about it is his voice. It's very expressive, it has like such a thick accent on it, and people are really, really starting to love Morgan Wallen ever since his make under, his glow down, his sleeveless cutoffs, mullet look with the little George Michael cross earring. That is just clicking. And if I'm going to call Orville Peck's fringed mask a gimmick, I'm going to call that look a little bit of a gimmick too. But I like gimmicks. I think it is fun when artists have certain looks or certain things that they always do. As a music fan, I enjoy that. Now, Morgan's interesting because typically the way you build your country cred is you really lean into how country you are, and you hate the pop scene, and that wins you some of the respect of a certain bro-ish type of fan. But Morgan has really open-handedly embraced pop by collaborating with Diplo on their song Heartless, and then at the same time, he's kind of thrown a bone to the Americana, or more serious music side of things, by covering Jason Isbell. And so I think he's someone that just has the vibe that they do what they want, which is, you know, the ultimate mullet energy. And I think there's an element of that on every single person on this list. These people all at least come across as doing what they want. Now, are we getting fooled by marketing? Are we not being skeptical enough? I don't know, but I know it's appealing to follow artists that follow their own path. That's what we look to artists for. And I do think that there's a lot of people that are seeing that in Morgan and are just seeing a huge potential in him and love his freaking voice. Next up is the Highwomen.
We love someone and we take them to heaven, and if the shoe fits.
Now, the Highwomen are buzzy in a different way than a lot of the other acts on this list. I'd say it's a very, very, very young crowd that is driving the conversation around most of those acts. But with the Highwomen, it's definitely a more learned, older crowd of people, maybe an NPR listener or something, that are really loving the Highwomen. And that's awesome. I love when you have older fans that are still open enough to embrace new music, because the Highwomen are an all-new group featuring Brandi Carlile, Amanda Shires, Maren Morris, and Natalie Hemby, all who have robust and impressive careers in their own right. They've come together, and they came together for a fairly outspoken reason, to kind of rebuke country radio for not playing women, and to add in sort of the regular woman's voice into the country music conversation. Their debut album was full of stories about different women, whether they were moms or lovers or freedom riders, and they captured awesome harmonies all over it, but then, if you know my review, too much unison singing as well. On a song like Crowded Table, they're preaching this message of inclusivity, and I think that actually kind of captures what it is to be a Highwomen fan. It feels more like it is being part of this movement, this sort of social progress as a country fan. And in some ways, I kind of wish there hadn't been that whole discussion around them, before they broke out. I kind of wish they'd just appeared, and that people could hear the music first and not just invest in a band because they feel like, oh, this is going to align with what I believe about country radio and the world. I think I went into it with a little bit of that cynical attitude, and it took me a few listens to kind of shake it off and be like, oh no, this record's pretty accessible. We have to talk about Zach Bryan.
Don't stop heading south. They will understand the world.
Zach is the Navy ordnanceman that started posting these brooding acoustic songs where he's really sweaty and sitting on his back deck onto YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, and they kind of all collectively went viral once his one song, Condemned, went viral last year.
I'm condemned, no, my heart is on the mend. Nobody gives a damn about me.
And in an era where I think music videos are getting really overproduced, considering we're in the TikTok generation, this guy just has a phone and these crappy videos, and they're all going viral, and people are here for the voice, which is this gruff, interesting, somber voice, and these great kind of poetic lyrics. Zach is now pretty much the indie guy. I personally have never seen a groundswell of support the way I have for Zach Bryan. There is something special happening. I mean, his album Deanne has become this like cult favorite, almost the same way that Tyler Childers' Purgatory did. And it's cool to see stuff as serious and spare and contemplative as Zach Bryan's music connect with people in this big way. And I don't think it's that complicated. I think that this is just a guy that is using the social media tools that we have and just putting good content out there, and the people have found it. And then I want to finish off the video with a little love for Tyler Childers. Some of y'all might think Tyler is a little too established to be in a video about emerging artists, but most people still don't know who Tyler Childers is in the mainstream, but he is certainly having a breakout couple years. And at this point, he's basically the king of Appalachian country music. He was like Sturgill before Sturgill decided to go into rock and psychedelics. He does still have that same super weird energy that Sturgill has, and that makes him funny and has a certain I don't care vibe about him. I mean, I don't know how many people would release a song about masturbation like Ever Loving Hand, but Tyler Childers will. He'll laugh at it, and people enjoy that.
They got my favorite lotion here.
But why people really love him is his voice. His voice is just interesting. It is straight up compelling, and it feels like something that only could have come out of Kentucky. It's this like gravelly, yelping, interesting, flexible voice. And when you mix that with great instrumentation and great lyrics on a song like Feathered Indians, you just have a recipe for a super big star. And that's what he's become. So that's it. Those are the artists that I would say are the buzziest country artists of our current moment. They're certainly all making their mark. They certainly have all been commented to me. And so feel free to leave more elaborate thoughts of why you love these artists, or tell me the people that you think are also in this class of buzzy, exciting, passionate talent. Be sure to like, share this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I will see you in the next video.